Kept hearing the same requests over and over. Will you just make this and sell it? And it became the largest health and wellness website and podcast for moms. So by the time we were ready to launch, then there was a lot of buzz and anticipation. We've done 7 figures every year in business. I think we're averaging around 30% growth per year. With Facebook advertising, with Meta, you can create lookalike audiences.
Hello, and welcome to the DTC Daily Podcast. Every week, we interview some of the best e-commerce founders and dive deep into their key growth drivers, uncovering actionable insights that you can implement in your business. But before we jump into today's conversation, a quick thank you to our friends at Saral. Most brands get influencer marketing wrong. They think paying a creator for a single post will spark a sales spike. That simply doesn't work. Successful brands like Graza, Obvi, and Hexclad are forging genuine partnerships. And that's where Saral comes in. It's your go-to platform for partnering with the right influencers, tracking results, and managing everything in one place. Book a demo at getsaral.com/demo, mention us, and get an extended free trial exclusive for our listeners.
Okay. All right.
Hey, Seth, welcome to the DTC Daily Podcast. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Before we jump in, could you tell our audience a little bit about what you do and about your business?
Sure. Yeah, so I'm the founder and chief visionary officer of Wellness, and we're a B Corp certified brand of all natural oral care products. We make better for you, less toxic products that people use every day, and primarily for your teeth, for your mouth, oral care, but we also have hair care products and skincare products as well.
So what got you into this business? Like what was the reason behind starting it?
So I had another company in the health and wellness space, and we were primarily focused on education, teaching people how to live healthier lives and use less toxic products, less toxic ingredients, healthier food, just living a healthier, less toxic life. And so we had tutorials on how to make your own personal care products, shampoo, conditioner, deodorant, toothpaste, that sort of thing, lotion. And the audience, they really liked the products, but they got tired of making it themselves. And so we kept hearing the same requests over and over. Will you just make this and sell it? And so when you hear that same request enough times, you realize that that's probably a decent business. So we launched it in 2020 and haven't looked back.
And what was the previous business about?
Sure. It was primarily a company that was designed for moms, teaching them how to live healthier lives, how to create a healthier home environment, healthy recipes, tutorials, research topics on natural health and wellness. And it became the largest health and wellness website and podcast for moms. And it led into the company today, to Wellness. And that's what we're focused on. Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of people, when they have the idea to start a business, is because they want to scratch their own itch in some capacity. They have an idea for something and they see a need for it. And so they just jump into the product creation side or creating the better widget, the better product, whatever that is. But unfortunately, in so doing, if you don't have an audience to sell to, it's really hard because then you have to figure out paid ads or organic or social media or things like that. And that's where the biggest learning curve comes from. And it's acquiring customers. That's always the hardest part. So I think the strategic advantage that we definitely had when launching Wellness was having a built-in audience who wanted the products that we were creating. There's another company that I started in the outdoor space called Rewild Gear, and it was really just to scratch my own itch of just creating really high quality and minimalistic products for camping, hunting, and backpacking, which is one of my passions. But I didn't have an audience in that industry, in that niche. And so customer acquisition has been very challenging just because that wasn't built in. So I've had to learn all those other things that go to acquire customers. And so it's just a lot more challenging. So I think whenever you're starting a company, build an audience first so that you can sell them something and not just build the product and then try to figure out who the audience is to sell.
So when you were working on Wellness and when the initial idea came about, were you building this in public? Were you building this along with the audience? Were you getting their feedback?
So not in the traditional way where a lot of people kind of go along with the building in public mentality. We followed a strategy. I don't know if you're familiar with Product Launch Formula, Jeff Walker's program on how to launch a product or you're selling something. So we kind of followed that strategy to an extent.
That down a little bit for anyone watching and who probably doesn't know about it?
Sure. Yeah. So Jeff Walker, he's one of the OGs in the digital marketing space. And he created a program called Product Launch Formula and a book, a program and a course, then also wrote a book with the same name called Launch that basically gives you a roadmap of how to launch a new product. And so what we did, because since we already did have that audience, we kind of alluded to something was coming and had them opt into like a new email list, and then would kind of slowly drip out a little bit of content and talk about it. But it wasn't building in public insofar as just saying, hey, this is what we're doing, and we're going to take you along that journey with us. That is a strategy that you can use, but that's not one that we chose to implement before launching Wellness.
Getting the strategy that you employed was more about creating intrigue. It was basically getting them to sign up to an email list and then kind of warming them up as you're getting closer to launch date.
Yes, very much so, because we already had an audience, already had an email list, already had a large following on social media. And so we were able to kind of drip out content that pertained to the new company and the products that we were building, that we were creating and going to launch. And so we didn't say exactly what it was at first, but then slowly over time, we would give a little bit more and a little bit more information. And so by the time we were ready to launch, then there was a lot of buzz and anticipation. And so we had a lot of sales that came through that very first day.
What was some of the early traction like?
Yeah, good question. It's been several years and I don't remember all the specifics around it, but a lot was just some of the content just alluding to what they were asking for. So like oral care, so toothpaste that's healthy, that wasn't using the toxic ingredients, like no fluoride, no glycerin, none of the things that most of your big brands have to put a poison control label on their tubes for, because if you take too much, it can really be harmful. So we led with the health side because that was the space we were going after. It was solving a pain point of oral care, toothpaste. People brush their teeth multiple times a day. And so when you're putting that in your mouth multiple times a day, if it's not the healthiest thing for you, then it's detrimental, it's hurting you. And so that's a pain point that a lot of moms had. They only want to use the healthiest products for their kids, so there's a lot of guilt that goes along there. So by letting them know that we're creating something that was just for them, what they wanted, and getting their feedback, then it was a very easy sell.
And once you launched to the existing audience, how did you go about then expanding your audience? Because I'm guessing at some point that you would have probably exhausted that audience.
Yeah, for sure. So we definitely lean into the existing audience, and then we leverage social media, both on our platform, so organically, and then running paid ads. So we did that leading up to the launch as well, whereas mainly just to drive interest and intrigue and getting people to opt in so they would know when the products were launched. But then we also created an affiliate program. So we had other people, other affiliates, other influencers in the health and wellness space who already had an audience as well, where they could promote our products to their audience. And then if someone clicked through that link to purchase, then they would get a small percentage of the sales.
Could you throw light on some of the traction that you've got in terms of numbers, if whatever you're comfortable sharing?
Yeah, we've done 7 figures every year in business. So, and we're experiencing a good amount of growth every year. I think we're averaging around 30% growth per year over time, and which is great. I mean, we're almost 6 years old now. And so we've experienced nice growth and everything. But the first couple of years were very challenging. I mean, we were in the red for our first 2 years in business. We were not profitable. And then we made some strategic errors, both in hiring, both in some of the agencies that we had hired, some personnel and things like that. And it just didn't work out like we had hoped. But then turning the ship around and writing it and just really focusing on the business fundamentals, making sure that we were profitable from the first sale and not just spending a lot of money on whether that's advertising or marketing or things like that weren't actually bringing in a return. Because you can look at it 2 ways. You can either focus on just growth that may or may not be profitable, or you can look at maybe we'll have a little bit slower growth year over year, but it's going to be profitable. And so that's the direction I like to take it, just because you can't eat revenue, but you can eat profit.
And what were some of the channels that you were focusing on earlier on? You obviously mentioned social media. A lot of your early on audience was email based. So how did you kind of bring all that audience together?
Yeah. So with Facebook advertising, with Meta, you can create lookalike audiences. So if you already have an email list and we're already becoming customers, and then we can so from the prior company, we're emailing that list to get them to hopefully become a customer and purchase. And then once someone was a customer and they had opted into our list for Wellness, then we could take that list, we can upload that to Meta, to Facebook and Instagram now as well. And then it will create a bigger audience that it will serve ads to based on that list that you're uploading, because it's looking for similarities. Meta has so much data, so much information from their user base that they're able to find similarities, commonalities, and overlap between who's already a customer and who might be a potential customer for us. So that was one thing that we did that was really helpful to expand that customer base and get new ones coming in.
You spoke a lot about the content that you guys were doing. Could you throw some light on some of the strategies that you employed on social media? What was the kind of content you were creating on social media?
Yeah, we're constantly testing that all the time. And so there's not like a one size fits all. One strategy that we've employed that's worked pretty well is an us versus them. We're comparing and contrasting our products versus the competitors. And it's showing how ours are non-toxic, how ours are healthier, how theirs are using ingredients that are bad for you. That's one strategy. Some have been just doing like an unboxing where like an influencer or someone is opening it and seeing what they get. Maybe it's running a discount or a sale. Although we tried to not do that too much because that devalues the products, I feel like, and the price point that we're anchored at, because we're not an ultra premium brand, but we're not a low end either. We're kind of like in the mid, kind of like a mid premium, because we want it to be accessible for families because that is our core audience.
Could you talk a little bit about your the affiliate strategy and the influencer marketing strategies that you guys employ?
Yeah, it's changed a lot because what used to work doesn't anymore. Back when I got my start in health and wellness and digital marketing, affiliates were huge. Everyone had a blog or creating organic content and building an email list. And so if you would email out with a product that you use personally and you recommended, it would convert really well. That doesn't work the same way these days because everything has gone more the influencer route. Mm-hmm. So it's just mainly social media, Instagram primarily, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook some to an extent, but it's changed so much where it's all just about the number of eyeballs. And I don't actually like it as much these days as how it used to work before, because primarily now the influencers or the affiliates who we're working with, they want to be paid just based on the number of followers, the number of eyeballs that they have. So just like a flat rate or something, but not based on the conversions, not on how many people are actually purchasing through that link. So I feel like the influencer, they can make more if they convert better, and it's more profitable for us and better for us if that model is followed as well. So I don't necessarily like where things have gone, but it's just kind of the nature of the industry, how it's changed so much. And I think it'll turn back around because eventually brands will stop paying influencers just based on their eyeballs if it's not actually converting.
And what are some of the checks that you're doing before hiring influencers? There are times when you do get stuck with influencers that have not got a genuine followership, right? There are people who are buying followers and then you post and you realize that, okay, it's not got any traction. Is there a process that you follow before you select any influencers?
Yeah, we'll want to vet the influencer just to see how many followers they have, what kind of engagement they're getting. And, we'll spot check things. We'll look at like their stories and posts and things like that just to see, is there engagement? Not just likes, but are people actually commenting or building community or engaging there? Because there's a big difference between just number of followers where you can go and buy those. Or there's all of these networks, like these influencer networks where they're all just commenting on each other's stuff. And it's just one gigantic circle jerk. And it's not actually, it's all fake and made up. And there's a lot of that. And so we try to avoid those. So we're looking at people that actually have a community, that actually have real influence and not just fake or made up influence. And what they promote or those products or brands that they work with, they're similar to ours in the sense of the audience that they have is our ideal customers and not just random or somebody that just has a big following just for being big.
Coming back to the key growth driver that you mentioned at the beginning of the call, saying that you obviously had an audience that you could sell to. Let's say there is someone that's listening to this call that's already launched, doesn't necessarily have an audience from before. What can they do now to build out their audience?
That's a really good question. I think if you can find someone to partner with who already has an audience and work with them like on an affiliate or sponsorship agreement or influencer agreement or something, that can be a way where you can leverage their audience to become your own. Maybe it's running ads to their audience or doing like a joint partnership where you're both linking your social media together and collaborating on something that can help. Or just creating organic content yourself and start building that up. And maybe it's running paid ads to your organic content to get followers and get email opt-ins and things. It's getting harder and harder though, because there's so much noise, and especially with AI coming up, where it's all the fake and AI slop and everything, where it's getting harder to tell what's real and what's fake. So it is getting to be a challenge. We're seeing just so much more AI content out there. And I think if it's done well and it's really authentic, then that's fine. But a lot of it is just cheap and lazy.
I get it. And earlier you mentioned that it's getting harder and harder to spot good influencers. Do you feel it's better to partner with one or two really authentic influencers on a longer term basis than to work with multiple influencers? As you just mentioned right now about the partnerships. Do you think that's a better strategy someone can employ where it's co-authored posts?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure which is better. I think it's going to depend on the company, the products, who the ideal audience is to determine the best strategy there. But I think when you're just starting, it probably makes sense to work with a lot of different ones and see what sticks, because you're not going to know what's going to work for you and what isn't until you test a lot of different ones and just see how their audience performs and the offers that you're putting out there. So when you're starting, like, try to work with 20 different ones, 30 different ones, and just see what's working. And then those that aren't, get rid of them. Those that are, work with them more and probably longer term. And what I found is that it typically you're not going to get the best bang for your buck working with those who already have a massive audience. Work with those who are a little bit smaller but up and coming, but have a more loyal audience because they're a little bit more authentic. They haven't sold out. They're not going to charge an arm and a leg for everything that they're doing. And they're more invested because they have to put the time and the effort to build it up before they can really start making a lot more money just for what they're.
What can someone do to grow their own social media accounts out and build their own audience apart from obviously partnering with other people? What kind of content do you think people should be doing? What do you think works?
It's going to depend on the industry, depend on the niche, depend on who the ideal audience is that you want. But my formula for success has been do the right things long enough consistently. And obviously the caveat here, what are those right things? How long and what does consistent mean? But I mean, with social media now, I think you got to be creating content every day, probably depending on the niche you're in and what's expected there, maybe more than one piece of content a day. But if we're talking Instagram specifically, and you're a brand, I think you probably need to put at least several posts a week, probably minimum of 3 posts a week, maybe 5 or 7, and then probably several stories a day. That seems to be what the sweet spot is right now. But again, this is always changing. And, there's different things that work better. I mean, stories tend to be doing the best. Reels and carousels are doing a little better than just single posts. But again, it's testing. It's because it's always changing. The algorithm is always updating and changing based on how the users are interacting and what seems to be converting and what's making more money for them. It's like everything. Test.
Are you continuing to do some of the educational content that you were doing earlier with the old company?
Yeah, we're doing some. We're doing more like in-depth studies talking about we're constantly testing our products, just lab testing and others just to make sure that they are the cleanest, that we have the best ingredients. Because we really pride ourselves on being the healthiest, having the healthiest products on the market that work better than all the others. So there's a lot of education that goes into that, explaining why ours are better. Comparing ours to others just so we can see how ours stack up and why it's better for your health, why they're more efficacious, work better to clean your teeth, etc. So yeah, we're continuing to do that just in a slightly different manner.
Got it. And now what are some of the future plans for wellness? How do you see wellness growing from 7 to 8 figures?
Yeah, I think it's continuing to do what we've been doing, expanding the market, because everyone brushes their teeth. Everyone, I mean, nobody likes cavities. Nobody likes going to the dentist. And so because it's a massive, massive market. So it's just more education, getting in front of a new audiences to let them try our products, because we have 5 different flavors of toothpaste now. And so once someone tries it, they typically stick with it and become a customer because our product, it tastes good, it works really well, and it doesn't have the crap that a lot of others do. So it's just continuing to do those same things over and over and expanding the reach, expanding the audience. And once people try it and they switch from someone else's to ours, they typically stick with it.
So, obviously you've got a great product, but what are you doing in terms of retention? What are the triggers that, you're using to get these people to come back? Because obviously people's attention span is not that great. They will, they see another shiny product, they're going to jump to it immediately. So what are you doing to kind of get them back month on month?
Well, we try to encourage subscriptions because they're going to save money if they hop on like a monthly or quarterly subscription. And I actually prefer to push people onto a quarterly and not a monthly, just because it's more environmentally friendly, not shipping out as regularly. It's going to save them money. It's going to save us money shipping wise and stuff. And so then you just have it there. You don't less likely to run out. So yeah, subscriptions, that's one thing. When email, we follow up when someone is most likely going to be running out based on the last order. Running ads to past customers, saying something along the lines of, if you're running low, here's what we got, here's what's new. And it's just staying top of mind, whether that's via social media, whether that's via email. We'll occasionally do like a physical mail out as well with like a discount code or something if someone hasn't in 6 months or something like that. But we're constantly testing just to see what works, what's keeping customers coming back and reordering.
In yesterday's newsletter itself, we actually we wrote about, we had a small piece on direct mail, and sending out direct mail to, especially to people that have stopped responding via email. So I just want to understand from you, how is that working out for you? How is direct mail doing?
It's doing pretty good. We're testing it out. We do, I think it's about twice a year, we'll do a direct mail piece. And typically we're just sending that out to customers that haven't ordered in about 6 months or longer. So just to follow up, because maybe they've unsubscribed from our email list, or maybe social media targeting isn't working. And so sometimes when you get direct mail's kind of gone out of favor, over the past few years, probably past decade, really, just because we got so much junk mail for so long and it was just going in the trash. And so it wasn't as effective. And so, but what's old is new again. And so we're constantly testing that out to see what works. And then we'll continue to do it if it seems to be profitable, if we're getting a bump in sales and reorders based on that. And then if it's not, then we'll scale it back and won't use it as much. So again, it's like anything, it's just it works.
Are you seeing a higher conversion rate compared to email marketing?
It's hard to measure that exactly because the lists are so very different. And email, I mean, we send out probably an email every other day. And so direct mail is usually a very specific campaign twice a year, sometimes more. So I can't really give a direct comparison there like that. But I think as a whole, email is still you're getting a better return there. It's going to be less expensive.
Of course.
Depending on your list size. So yeah, I mean, as a whole, I think email is still better. But direct mail can definitely jumpstart it based if you're not seeing the results via email.
And my last question would be, do you have any advice for anyone that's listening to this call?
Entrepreneurship is hard. Running a business, growing a business is hard. There's no way around that. And you just got to do those things over time. Just be consistent and continue to push through. If you have a vision for something, network with other business owners, with other entrepreneurs who are doing things. You want to spend time with those people who have a vision for what they want their life to look like, for how they want to change the world. They want to make better products or services. And so you become like those people that you spend the most time with. So continue to do that and look at what others are doing. And how can you do something that's unique, that's different? Different is better. Like, be different, be yourself, put your own spin on something, and just go out and do your very best to change the world.
Thank you, Seth, so much for doing this. It's been a wonderful episode.
Thanks for having me.